Hey there riders, Moto Journo Kris here, and I thought I'd finally do a video on the new Moto Guzzi V100 Mandello, now that we're seeing full specs released. We've known a lot of these details for a while of course, but here's a full rundown starting with the pricing we know so far. It's not released everywhere, but Euro pricing is 18,249 Euros for the up-spec S model or 15,749 Euros for the base model, which may not be far off the US prices as far as US dollars go. No indication on Australian pricing, but we've been told spring 2023 as far as arrival, which is a fair way off when you consider we're in spring 2022 right now. Now being fair, this bike is not some major revolution or evolution of sport tourers when we look at the market overall. However, it is a major turning point for Guzzi in many ways, which in some ways began with the V85 TT Adventure, but takes an even bigger step with the V100 into liquid-cooled engine technology. There's some other standout features too, whether that's for Guzzi or motorcycles, namely the adaptive aero that I'll get to shortly. So starting with the 90-degree transverse V-twin, liquid-cooled with double overhead camshaft and 4 valves per cylinder, boasting a 142cc capacity thanks to its 96 by 72mm bore and stroke. Power is 115 horsepower, so not earth-shattering, but credible, peaking at 8,700 RPM, while torque maxes out at 105 Nm at 6,750 RPM. Probably the more interesting figure is that 82% of that torque is available from 3,500 RPM, meaning very accessible performance that should be exceptionally usable in all conditions. Those heads being rotated 90 degrees is another big departure from tradition as well, so it'll be interesting to see how this bike is received by Guzzi fans and long-term aficionados. I don't think we'll see a Harley situation where riders bemoan changes regardless of how good they are and act as though they've been totally betrayed. Other details include the use of a shallow oil pan with separated crank chamber by reed valve to reduce friction. A counter rotating shaft is also run, not for balance but for drivability and smooth drive in acceleration and deceleration, according to Guzzi at least. This means a smaller and lighter crankshaft helping boost performance. The engine is run as a stressed member with 6 mounting points, with the foot pegs also fixed to the crankcase. A multi-plate wet clutch is also used, hydraulically controlled, complete with anti-hopping system, replacing the dry single-plate designs they've used until now. Ride-by-wire is certainly not new for Guzzi, with traction control a feature we've long seen on the V7 and V9, but there's a strong electronics package here that should cover all the major bases for a modern rider, if perhaps not the number of settings we see on some of the competition. That includes 3 engine maps, 2 levels of engine brake control, 4 levels of traction control, 4 riding modes, and cruise control. You could almost say that's basic in 2022, however, how many people really need 10 levels of traction control? The 4 riding modes naturally each run a preset of these available settings to suit tourism, rain, road, and sport. The dash is a full-colour 5-inch TFT. The 6-speed gearbox also runs 2 low clearance ratios in the first 2 gears, technology that comes from the V85 TT, but specifically redesigned for the V100, which is meant to offer cleaner feeling shifts, which in turn allows a quick shifter to be fitted. This is a first for Guzzi and goes both up and down, although this seems to be an S-only feature. Granted, that's a bit of a luxury, but if you've never used one, you're missing out. Fuel consumption is quoted as 4.7 litres per 100k, which is decent for essentially an 1100, while adding a 17-litre fuel tank means a range pushing past 300 kilometers easily, and service intervals are 12,000 kilometers, which should appeal to those worried about servicing costs. A carbon shaft drive is also used with an aluminium swing arm that shows off that rear wheel to great effect, and certainly adds to the styling. Apparently they didn't need to run reaction rods to counteract lift on and opening throttle due to the design they used, so you get the best of both worlds, chain reaction with shaft maintenance. As someone most used to chains, that sounds good to me, as I never thought shaft drive was amazing in that area. Going back to the chassis, the engine is held by a steel tube frame with a 24.7 degree steering head angle and 1475mm wheelbase. The seat is well placed at 815mm, which to me at least is not too high and not too low for a tourer. They offer a slightly lower and slightly taller accessory seat option as well, which will help shorter riders and those after a bit more of a stretch between the seat and pegs. Pillion use was also a primary concern in the design stages, of course, with both seats generally sized and a rear grab rail run. You will need to head to the accessories range for the pannier mounting system. It's not standard, but Guzzi have boasted about the looks when you're not running the luggage, with the pillion pegs used as a secondary mounting point. Brembo provide the brakes with 4-piston calipers and 320mm floating rotors, plus a 280mm rear rotor with 2-piston Brembo floating caliper. Continental provide the ABS, and thanks to the use of an IMU, it does have cornering functionality. We also see a radial master cylinder, which I particularly like as a more premium feature. The suspension is where we see the big differences between the two model versions available. The standard V100 Mandello runs 41mm USD forks with adjustable preload and rebound. That's matched to a single shock with external preload adjustment plus rebound. You have to upgrade to the V100 Mandello S for the Öhlins semi-active suspension running the Smart EC 2.0 system. There's a Nix 43mm fork with full adjustability and a matching single TTX shock with external preload adjuster. On the S you get two suspension maps too, comfort for comfort and dynamic for sportier riding. Electronic suspension certainly seems the smartest application on touring and sports touring machines too, so this seems a good option for the high spec variant in my mind. Wheels are aluminium alloy 17-inch units, a 3.5-inch front and 6-inch rear, with a 120x70 and 190x55 tyre size, ensuring a good range of tyre options will be available for these bikes. Now, a bigger feature we haven't seen on motorcycles is the inclusion of adaptive aerodynamics. This is something you will see on performance cars where the spoiler is automatically positioned for downforce as speeds rise. It's a bit like the wings we've seen become more prominent on race bikes and the production versions, but naturally is adaptive or acts in a programmed way, which on the Guzzi is based on speed. There's side deflectors on the tank essentially, which along with the adjustable screen are able to reduce air pressure on the rider by 22% once fully open, which they reckon means almost full tourer wind protection. That's linked to riding modes and speed as far as when it activates, but is a pretty cool feature overall, and apparently the rider can go into the settings to modify that behaviour with some limits. I'd be inclined to say this is a bit of a gimmick, but realistically a bit more wind protection on this style of bike can be a big boon for reducing fatigue and increasing comfort. So the inclusion could well see more real-world use than the wings we see so commonly these days. Now the standard V100 Mandello will be available in polar white or magma red with gold wheels, with a special naval aviation version also available. The V100 Mandello S is the up-spec version, which will be available in green 2121 or avant-garde grey, both of which come with matte black wheels. Notably, the S runs a TPMS system, heated grips, the electronic suspension from Öhlins and quickshift, plus the Moto Guzzi MIA or multimedia system. Standard on all models is a DRL, daytime running light, cornering lights and USB socket under the seat. So overall, the new Moto Guzzi V100 Mandello looks like a great addition, and we could well see this machine expanded into more offerings for those who aren't after a sport touring machine. Only time will tell at this stage, but as someone who isn't a hardcore Guzzi fan, they seem to be right on target from an outsider perspective in balancing tradition, performance and overall loadout. Pricing seems a little more premium too, however that's not surprising from a European machine, and we'll have to wait and see where it lands in the US and Australia for comparison. So let me know what you think of the latest Guzzi winner, or have they strayed too far from tradition? Comment below. If you're still here, leave a like and stay safe out there.